Did COVID change the world? It has changed the world in several directions. Not only because people are sick and ill and even dying, but also because the relationship between the different countries, in particular the big countries, has been full of suspicions of how it took place, etc., etc. So, but the most important, there are two. One, the vaccine is already exists already a vaccine. The vaccine has not been still deployed, but the worry that we had about the timing to get the vaccine, it has been shorter than expected. Remember that, for instance, for there are illnesses which still we don't have vaccine for other viruses. So to have found the vaccines in such a short period of time is quite an achievement. And I want to underline that because the cooperation among scientists at this point in time has been very spectacular. I do not find in history, short history, not since science is really an important phenomenon, a mobilization of scientists in such a coordinated fashion, in such cooperative mood. So I think that is something that has to be developed and it has to be underlined because it's very important the scientific community has worked so well and so fast. So if I were to say something at this point in time, I think that we are better than what we were at the beginning of the pandemic. We have a vaccine, number one. Number two, from the political point of view, we don't have Trump in politics, in the United States. So we have two big news at this point in time. One, which is the vaccine, and second is that we have in the United States a new president completely different than the one that they used to have at the beginning of the pandemic. That was really a very serious problem for the pandemic because nothing that he did was in the right direction. I would dare to say that everything was in the wrong direction, or almost the wrong direction. The position of the United States was very wrong, I think, from the very beginning. First, negating the fact, and second, negating any cooperation among different countries. Remember that the World Health Organization, that used to be or should have been the organization, the center of gravity of this problem, the United States, the first thing they did is to abandon the organization, abandoning, taking with them the funding, for instance, of the organization. So really, I think that the reaction of the United States was a reaction really, as I said before, in the wrong direction, because at the moment it was more cooperation, at least in health, in global health, was needed. They decided to go American first, American alone, which is what it was. So leaving also the World Health Organization in a rather difficult situation. And remember something that for me is very dramatic when I look at it. The organization in Geneva, the World Health Organization, today, the funding is very low, as you know. When the Americans withdrew from the organization, now the most important funder of the World Health Organization is not Germany, it's not China, it's not the United Kingdom, it's Bill Gates. So the most important global organization now, the most important contributor is a non-state actor, which is called Bill Gates, which is really something that is very shocking. It's true that Bill Gates has been always working on the pandemics. He's very concerned about that Gavi, the Organization for Vaccines, he is the most important contributor. But the idea is to underline is that the lack of concern on the World Health Organization of other important donors. So it's really dramatic not to have seen a mobilization of resources also for the organization that is the basic organization for global health. Well, I think it's very difficult to say just as today what is going to be the evolution. We still don't know exactly what the United States is going to do, how it's going to play. We don't know probably still the names of some of the important people which are going to be around the government of the United States. But I do think there will be a new spirit to my mind. I think that is not difficult to change, climate, and that can be done by a couple of reference on the media by President Biden and Xi Jinping, the president of China, would relax a little bit the situation. I think that it would be not difficult. From the relaxing to really changing, it is a big difference. What I would expect is that from the United States, I think the relation with China, they are not going to change deep. In the deep side, I think that the American people are very suspicious of China. And that is something that is true for the Republicans, and in a way is also true for the Democrats. And to change that is going to be very difficult. How to recuperate some kind of a strategic trust between the United States and China is not going to be easy. And we have to start with some of the issues that in which we can really, or they can really cooperate. Example number one, suppose that President Biden, as he has said, returns to the Paris Agreement. That would be a fantastic change, because look, President Biden in his second speech, in the second debate, he said that his intention will be by the middle of the century, 2050, to have a country, the United States, which is neutral as far as CO2 is concerned. Remember that a few days before, not less than a month before, President Xi Jinping had said practically the same. By 2060, China will be neutral on CO2. So these two things put it together is a fantastic change of the Paris Agreement. Now, it's very easy to make commitment for 2050 or for 2060. What is very important is that the trajectory from here to 2060 or 60 is really the appropriate one, because otherwise, at the very end, when we are approaching the time, we begin to go fast, and this is not possible. But if these two statements are maintained and are serious, really we enter from the climate change point of view in a moment of a certain hope. So this is a type of cooperation that can be done easily between the United States and China. And remember that Paris was a success because China and the United States went to Paris with a common position. That would allow Paris to be a success, something that Kyoto was not. So to have the two big countries already in agreement was very important for Paris. Now, if we recuperate that, and it seems, at least with the statements produced by both of them, that this is a real possibility. That should give us some sense of cooperation possible. I'm afraid I cannot be so positive on this matter. I think that part of the polarization has its roots in the crisis of 2008, which has not been resolved completely, the economic crisis, the level of inequalities, the level of people suffering still from the consequences of that crisis, the appearance of technology that is creating unemployment. All these things have to be tackled. And if we don't tackle all these things, really the level of polarization will continue. The difficulty for many people in the world today to live is increasing, and therefore the level of fragmentation of the society, polarization, or whatever the name you want to use. But I would like to underline very much that this polarization is linked to a certain extent to the fact that inequality is growing in the world of today. I would like to underline also is that many or several old conflicts have broken up at the time of the COVID and at the time of the tension between the big powers. So in a certain manner, we can say that when the global world is not being run or in an organized manner, suddenly, when nobody is looking, you have Nagorno-Karabakh exploding, which why today? Because nobody was looking to that conflict, to that situation. And we are seeing several of these. For instance, I think the position of Turkey today is also, to a certain extent, troublesome. We are creating now a problem that didn't exist before between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. All that part between the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, we didn't expect to have problems there, and suddenly we have problems there of dimensions that can be big, because the Nagorno-Karabakh, to mention one, is a very dramatic conflict, which people can be killed, and then there will be displacements of people. It will be really quite a potential grave, serious problem. The G20, and to recuperate the WTO, and I insist, these for me are very important. And the G20 for me has two obligations. One, to define better which are the members of G20. I mean, the G20 is now by invitation, some, etc. We know who should be there, but we have to really define well which are the members of the G20. You can invite more, but at least who are the responsible for that? Second thing, and I put all my energy on that. I think the G20 has to have a secretariat, has to have something which continues from one meeting to the next. I call it the secretariat, but you understand what I mean. It has to be an organization that follows one meeting of G20 for another. And we cannot have it because the rotating presidents, it takes this period of time, Saudi Arabia was the rotating president, was not in a position to really lead. And if we want to have this type of organization, the leadership and the follow-up has to be much better. I would love to have, for instance, Gordon Brown in charge of a mechanism to follow up the decision of the G20. And I talk about Gordon Brown because it should be that type of personality, which is with a secretariat that could do that follow up of the decisions. And now the second WTO, I mentioned already the nomination of the Director General, today better than tomorrow, and to fulfill the nominations of the judges for conflict resolution. The United Nations has been needed of reform many years. I think that the period of Kofi Annan, some of the reforms were done, but not everyone. I mean, the objective for the millennium and all that was a very important decision that were taken, responsibility to protect. It was during the times of Kofi Annan, some reforms were done, but not on the structure. So the reforms on the structure are very difficult because the Security Council is the Security Council, and nobody is going to accept a change in the Security Council, at least on the permanent members. It may be changes on the rotating members, and maybe we can find a better structure for that. And second, on the United Nations, the United Nations it has a good and very important number of agencies in which they can probably make some reforms to make it more appropriate to the times of today. It is true that in public health, the HWO is a pre-United Nations structure. It comes from the First World War, and it has been always in a rather unclear relationship with the United Nations. Do something there, probably, maybe of interest also. I think the global public good should be the preoccupation of the civilized society, the global society. Now, what we are seeing today with the pandemic is something that existed in the past. One goes back to the War of Peloponnese, no? the pandemic that prevented Athens to win the battle between the two cities of Greece. But so pandemics have been with us. The Middle Ages, we have many of pandemics. But today we have something we didn't have before, which is science. And the development of science, which is really very fundamental. This is a big change, a very big change. And we have to use it in a much intelligent manner, in a much cooperative manner. On science, cooperation should be a must. Biden arrived to the presidency in a world condition not very good, but also the society that he has to lead is not in good shape either. So President Biden will have to devote a lot of energy, a lot of time to heal his country. How much time he is going to devote, how much he will be able to make progress on the reconciliation of the country, that is a big question. We don't know still. But that means how much he's going to devote to the external problems of the world. I think the United States will be again more engaged than he used to be with Trump. But how much he will be able to do that, the statement he has made from the moment he was president-elect, are very positive and full of hope. But as I said before, I don't think that the relationship with China are going to change deeply. But if they were to change only on the manner that we do things, even if the things are not perfect, at least the manners in which we do things is a very important change. It's a very important change. And I hope very much that the President Biden will do that. Cooperation with China, at least formally, much normalized than it used to be with Trump. And this is not yet, but at least it's the beginning. And then I think that for the Europeans, the presence of Biden is very, very important. Biden is a pro-European, and Biden is going to help really. It's a president who will not be in his aim to break the European Union. That was in the mind of Trump. On the contrary, he will be on the side of the European Union more united, more integrated. And that is very, very important. And for us Europeans, we have to take advantage of that situation, work it well, deal with the President Biden well, at the same time using our strategic autonomy, which is something that for the Europeans is a must. But I think it's possible to do both things at the same time. Well, I think that we have to define security again. A pandemic is a problem of security, and therefore we have to be prepared much better than we have been at this time. We cannot get surprised by a pandemic. The 21st century, we didn't expect pandemics, but it was a mistake. Other scientists were saying it will take place. It will take place. From my scientific background, I dare to say something that goes in that direction. The equilibrium of the Earth is an equilibrium which is very sophisticated. And when you think that with 100 elements of the periodic system of the elements, you construct everything. You construct the different combination, but you construct the mind of the scientist who will discover the vaccine, and the vaccine, and the virus. Everything is made of the same, in certain proportion, but at the end is 100 issues, 100 elements being constructed. If you think about that, it's very clear that a change, for instance, in the certification has consequences on viruses. And therefore, we have to look at that in a global sense. The equilibrium of the system, the ecosystem, is fundamental. And this is a public, very important public good. It's the only thing we have. And therefore, to have a vision, to have a mentality of looking at our planet with that perspective is very important. And that is a perspective which is a scientific perspective. Those who deny science, they are not part of the 21st century. Science is part of our life, and it's a good thing that science is part of our life. Well, here is wishful thinking, more than wishful thinking that the vaccine will be implemented, it will be distributed. It would not be a cause for battles among countries because of the distribution of the vaccine. This is a public good and should be distributed in an equal manner. Second, I will wish the utmost to President Biden, because it's very important for him to really organize well his country, but also the influence that the United States continues to have in the world. And for that, it's fundamental a better relationship with China. Now, look, we are having now a situation in which we have, like in the wars of Peloponnesus, well, in this case we don't have war, but we have a change on the emerging power versus established power, China versus the United States, quotation marks. And at the same time, a pandemic, which is something that reminds very much the Peloponnesus, Thucydides were books, no? But I think that the reaction to those things in the 21st century should not be the same that the 19th century. Well, not the same that the 19th century or the 20th century. The First World War was a war really on an emerging country versus status quo countries. And we have enough experience of how these things can end up. Do not play with them. Look at them, look them in the eyes, and try to find solutions and prevent that the situation of the world continues in a constructive manner rather than a destructive manner. I mean, it's very, very difficult to extract optimism from so many people being killed by this virus. But whenever you have a very important call, a global call, if we are intelligent people, and I think we are, we have to react in a more, our convergence into politics is very, very important. Now, let me say what I said at the beginning. The most important part of the economy of the world is inequality, and either we face inequality seriously, or it will be very difficult to resolve the problems that at the end are problems linked to human beings. In human beings, we do not see a future. Is a human being that cannot act like somebody who has a future. So inequality is a must. We are not going to solve the problems of inequality in 24 hours, but we have to prove that inequality can be, that battle can be won. And that is what I will ask the other scientists, the scientists of the economy, to really social scientists to try to organize the big battle against inequality.